Let's have a look in detail at what is comprised in the accounts list. If I click on accounts list, I'll get a screen that comes up, and with all the screens that are in there, I can actually make them bigger or smaller as required by simply doing that. Grab the bottom of it and stretch it. There are a number of tags on the top, all accounts, which will give me a list of everything that's in there, but it's also split up into the various groupings. They are the assets. These are the things that I own. Next to that, of course, I have my liabilities. These are the things that I owe. For example, my credit cards, the amount of money that I've collected on behalf of the government when I've been out there collecting GST for them, and my payroll liabilities, such as my PAYG that I have to deduct from employees, which I may or may not have yet. I also have a tag marked equity. On the equity tag is my investment into the company. If I've got a limited company, it will be share capital. Otherwise, it might just be a loan to the company to set up the initial bank account and to buy the initial equipment. And underneath that, I may have my drawings in or out of the company. I'll have my retained earnings, which is the money I've accumulated over previous years, my current year earnings, so I can monitor how I'm doing this period of 12 months. And there's an amount there for historical balancing, which we may go into in a bit more detail later on. I also have an income section where I can split up the various forms of income that I've got. In this particular case, I have work I do for service and repair, for construction, for renovation, and I may actually sell parts to people who need them. I also have a cost of sales where I put in the direct job costs. I also have a list of expenses, such as my general and administration expenses, employment expenses, occupancy costs. I also have a thing for other income. Any income I might get that is not part of my normal course of business, for example, any interest income that I have. And I also have other expenses, and that's normally where we'll find the income tax expense. Having looked through that, I might realise that I don't have sufficient information recorded about certain expenses, or I might want to have more information there or split it in a different form. If I click on the expense tag, I can see there that I've only got one account number 61090 for motor vehicle expenses. I may want to track the amount of expenditure that I have on petrol, on repairs, on registration and insurance, for example. And I might want to show that as a new number further down. And I might like to say, well, okay, I'll rename that 7000 for motor vehicle expenses and put in subgroupings underneath. If I click on the little white arrow at the beginning of the line, like that, it comes up with more information about the motor vehicle expenses. If I decide to change that, all I've got to do is to change that 1090 to the number 7000. And if I click OK, I've now moved it down there. If I click on the white arrow again, I notice that up in the top left-hand side, I have two items there, header account or a detail account. A detail account I can put transactions against. A header account is, as it implies, a straightforward header. If I look at the details behind it, in the details column, I can put in a further description in there if other people are using it, and I might want to explain what they are to them. And if I want to generate a subtotal on reports for motor vehicle expenses, I have to put a tick in that box underneath. If I click OK, it now comes out with a small highlight. It's now highlighted, and what I want to do now is to add underneath it the various expense accounts that I want to put in. To do that, I simply go down to the bottom of the page and click New. And I'm going to add a detail account, which is an expense of 7100, which I'm going to call my most common expense because I fill up at least once a week, petrol and oil. Click OK. And I've now added petrol and oil. If I want to add repairs and maintenance as a new account, I can click New and 7200, press Tab, repairs and maintenance. And if I click New, I can then put in the next one. Rego and insurance. If you want to use your own abbreviations, by all means, please do. So I've just seen there how I can add new accounts. My rule for accounts that I don't need, I just leave them there. If I want to delete them, it's quite easy for me to do so. For example, I don't think I'm ever going to need workshop supplies. Click on it. At the top of the screen, I've got File, Edit. If I go to Edit, it then gives me the opportunity to delete that account, and I can click Delete. As a word of caution, if you try and delete an account that has some transactions against it, you will be unable to do so. MYOB will not let you delete accounts with transactions against them. In the next video, we'll talk about the tax columns and any further changes that spring to mind.